Today we're going to continue to find volume by rotating a given area over the x-axis, but we're going to do all the graphs and everything on the calculator. So find the volume of the figure form by revolving the area framed by the given functions over the x-axis and sketch the figure. So what I'm going to do is type these equations. I'm going to type into y1, y equals sine of x. So I need to make sure that I'm in radian since I'm typing in a trig function. And then in y2, I'm going to type in 0. So we've got sine of x. And then into y2, I've got 0. Okay. And then I'm going to graph it. And you don't have to change the window, but since we just graphed the little part in quadrant 1, I'm going to kind of change my window to just kind of zero in on quadrant 1. So I'm going to go to the window. So for x in quadrant 1, that goes from 0 to the positive numbers. So I'm going to do just a little bit less. So I'm going to do like -1/2. X max, since we're cutting this off at x equals pi, I'm going to do just a little bit bigger than pi. So I'm going to make it 3.5. And then in quadrant 1, y is 0 to the positive numbers, so I'm going to just start with like -0.5 again for y, and I'm going to make the max maybe just like 5. That just gives me a better picture of the graph. So here was sine of x. This was the y equals 0. So I can see this is the area shaded. Then we'll flip it over the x-axis. So this part will also be shaded. Okay, and I can see it's all solid. So that's going to give us a disk, which will just be r squared. So remember, r is the part farthest away from the axis you flipped over. Okay, so that came from this equation. So I'm going to use my y1 for my r value. Okay, well then the last thing I need to find is a and b. Okay, well we know b, they told us x equals pi, so that's a vertical line. So that's just, we're cutting it off right there at pi. This value here is going to be 0. If you're not sure, you can calculate the intersection there. So how I set up my integral is going to be a is 0, b is pi, and then you could write sine of x squared, but since I already have sine of x in the calculator, I'm just going to type in y1 squared, and the squared will need to go inside the parentheses that pop up. And then I'll fill in a dx there. So from here, I'm just going to do second quit, go to the home screen. I'm going to type the pi in first. You can multiply by pi at the end. I just usually forget if I don't type it in the calculator first. Then to get the integral, math 9, that'll be 0. This one will be pi. And then to get the y1, you do alpha, then trace. And you can see your y1, sometimes we'll need y2. So that'll be y1 squared, and then a dx. And that gives us our answer. So 4.935 units cubed. So let's look at one that's a washer now. Okay. So I've got, going to go back to y equals. In y1, I'm going to type the x to the 8th equation. In y2, I'm going to type the square root 1. So we've got -2 times x minus 1 to the 8th, and then a plus 2, and then square root of x. And then I'm going to graph it, and then if I need to adjust my window at all after I graph it, I will. Okay, but I can see everything. You just want to see where they intersect in quadrant 1. So then I'm going to do a sketch of this. So there's the first graph, and then the square root graph. and I'm going to get rid of this little extra part. I just like to have the little overlapping section. And then, so this is the area enclosed by those two graphs. Then I'll flip it over. Okay, this section will also be solid. And then I'll show my rotation. Okay, so we can see that this one is going to be a washer because we've got this white kind of cone-ish shape cut out of it. So for a washer, we'll do big R squared minus little r squared. Okay. So when I set up my integral, okay, the one farther away from the axis you flipped over is going to be your big R. So this graph, which was this one, okay, that's the one I typed into y1. So I'm going to use my y1 as big R. This one, which came from the y2 equation, the square root, I'll use that as my little r. So what I'm going to type in the calculator will be y1 squared minus y2 squared. Okay, and then I'm going to have to put the dx there. Okay, and then I need to figure out what a and what b is. Okay, so to figure out, we need to find where these two cross. We're going to do second calc 5 because we're looking for their intersection. So since my cursor popped up closer to this one, I'm just going to do this one first. So that'll be my b value. So once you're close to it, you're just going to do enter 3 times. So enter the first time, it'll say second curve. Enter the second time, it'll say guess. And then enter one more time. When it says intersection, that is going to be your x value. Okay, so that'll be our b value. I'm going to just write down the whole number. So that'll be 1.8662124. So that was this one. Then I need to find a. So I'm going to just do second calc intersect again, so second calc 5. Now I need to move my cursor over closer to the other one. Okay, and then once you're close to it, when it says first curve, hit enter, second curve, enter, guess, hit enter, then it'll say intersection. So A is going to be 0.00401,755. And I'm not going to rewrite these here, I'll just type them in. And now we're ready to type the integral in. So back to the home screen. I'm going to type my pi first. If you don't type the pi at the beginning, you'll just get the answer from the integral and then multiply it by pi. Okay, and then math 9. So my A is 0.00401,755, and then my B is 1.8662124, and then I need to type in y1 squared, so alpha trace, so then y1, and then you're going to square it, minus back to alpha trace, and y2, and then it is also squared. So that's like our r squared, so that would be this one squared minus that one squared. This one, if you'd rather just type in an x, since square root of x squared is just x, that's fine. This one, I would type it in with the y1, since it's a complicated equation. And then that gives us our volume of 15.225 units cubed.